Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Security Squawk, your no BS guide to the cyber chaos of the world. I'm Bryan Horning, and with me, as always, my co-host, Randy Bryan. How are you, sir?
Good, and yourself?
I am doing fairly well, as we talked about in the green room, just getting over a little bit of an illness and finally feeling pretty good. So, don't know what's going around there in the world, but seems to be impacting a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into it, man. We don't have a lot of time to do a show today because we've got things to do, places to be. So let's jump right into it. And look, everyone's still all hyped up about AI, right? AI this, AI that. But while everyone's distracted, the Russians are over here reinventing the classics. And this week we got a 1-2 punch. Randy's bringing an AI story that's a little too close to Black Mirror for comfort. And then I'll take us back to the old school Russians showing off their new tricks. So here we go. Let's kick this off with Randy's AI and his topic he's bringing to the table today. This article came across my radar earlier this week, and I thought this was pretty interesting. Because it wouldn't be 2025 if we didn't talk about AI. So Anthropic, one of the biggest names in AI right now, just admitted that hackers are already weaponizing their tools. Yep, in the same cutting edge way that AI's everyone's talking about how now AI is in the hands of cybercriminals, and experts are saying it's terrifying. And Randy's going to clue us in on how fast this threat landscape is shifting. So what's going on here, Randy?
Well, I mean, so first off, this is something that we've hit one way or another. I mean, we bring it up almost weekly, honestly. And we've talked about how, okay, so we're looking at one insurance company and millions of records leaked and how the bad guys are going to use AI. You know, we'll talk about some other company, millions of records leaked, and how the bad guys are going to use AI. And we've also talked about how they're going to use AI to help find vulnerabilities, help write code. And basically, we've been saying for probably a year and a half, those days are coming. And I guess the point of this article and why I wanted to talk about it a little bit, Bryan, is because basically those days are here. And so Anthropic just came out and they have talked about some of the criminals they have found using their stuff, right? And so they're using it to scrape the dark web, pull information together. They're using it to do like deep fake voices and even videos that I've read about to impersonate. I read about, or actually I was listening to a podcast. I think they were talking about how the bad guys had used basically AI to make a deep fake of a CFO that was so believable that the employee that the fake CFO called on Zoom transferred over $25 million. And then one of the things that this article also goes into that we haven't really talked a whole lot about on our show is the bad guys doing what we call vibe coding. And vibe coding is where you're using like Claude Code or Replit, or something like that. And you basically aren't a coder, but you're using the AI to help you build out a program and all that kind of jazz. And even seeing instances where some of these that have been developed with vibe coding are now getting sold on the dark web. And none of this is too shocking, really, Bryan, none of it's too surprising. It's just, I wanted to talk about it. I thought we'd have some good points we could bring up, and I just thought also it'd be good to talk about it because we've been saying that the time, like I said, we've been saying the time's coming, and basically the time is here.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the same story or not that I saw over the weekend, but I briefly saw it, read like the first 3 paragraphs, got the gist of it. It was essentially somebody built an AI. So we talk about the world, right, where everybody's trying to figure out how to make money with AI, use AI, build AI tools and agents, right, to help us do things. Well, hackers are building agents. There's one hacker where it was found that somebody built an agent that went out to the web, found login pages, right, identified the login page, and then tried to use brute force attempts. Yep. So like, let me paint the picture a little bit deeper for you, right? Let me get a little Bob Ross on you and paint some happy trees for you, right? So at the end of the day, think about this. They can get this AI to get to the point to go, what login screen did I just come upon? Okay. Maybe it's a WordPress login. Maybe it's a M365 login, a Google Workspace login, a Gmail login, a Facebook login. The AI can now say, okay, I'm at a Facebook login page. Yep. So let me go to a data source that's going to have like accounts that were stolen from LinkedIn or another social media. So you can get to where you need to go and parse through it way faster than what they've had to do in the past.
Yep.
Which is basically, use millions and millions of records, and hopefully they don't trip something up because of traffic or too many hits or getting caught. All these things are going to go away. So meaning all the defenses that all these cyber defense, cyber security companies have built over the years are going to go by the wayside very quickly because of AI. Cloudflare is going to have a hard time doing what they do in the age of AI, right? Unless their AI can keep up with the criminals' AI, that's the only way that Cloudflare can continue to do what they do successfully. The cyber criminals know exactly what Cloudflare looks for and what trips up Cloudflare. So they're building the AI tools to circumvent all of that, right? Not like by doing things like saying to the AI, okay, if you get somebody to click on that link or make sure that the same person doesn't click on that link twice, because that's what Cloudflare is looking for, right? And make sure that user doesn't go to the same server, because we have like 10 different servers set up now, not just one, because I know using one doesn't work. So we set up 10 and they're distributing that traffic to the 10 different servers. I'm going to talk about that a little bit in my story, but that's what's going on out there with AI and what cyber criminals are doing. They're using AI to figure out how to get past the traditional tools that have been widely accepted the last 10 years. Cybersecurity tools are going to become obsolete really fast, really quickly here at a very high clip. And there's nothing these CrowdStrike, Cloudflare, there's nothing they can do because the foundation of their software is not built for AI and AI threats.
Yeah, well, it literally, most of what you just mentioned has a little CAPTCHA to see if you're human or not. And so if you're human, then we know that you can only do one of these per minute or 10 per minute or whatever if you're human. And you're right. If you can get an AI to click on that and say I'm human, now you've determined that it's human. You don't have any limits on it because humans can only do a little bit at a time. And I know that's just one small scenario, but the sky's kind of the limit. And before, we've always known for like the last 10 plus years, hey, your stuff's leaked on the dark web. The bad guys are going to take your username and password and go try to log in everywhere. Well, how were they doing that before? Well, maybe they had some scripts. Maybe they had doing it manually. Maybe most likely a combination of both. Now with AI, like you said, they can just get more of that done a lot faster because it's an incredible automation tool as well.
So it's not the end of the world for cyber defense, but you need to be aware that this stuff is changing, right? There are certain tools out there that exist that I can think of off the top of my head that aren't really impacted by what's happening with AI, right? But there are a ton of tools out there, the majority of them, that rely on something called anomaly detection. And an anomaly detection is basically, this isn't human behavior right here, right? That's what it's looking for. This isn't like something a human would normally do on a computer. So it must be software. So it must be malicious, or we need to look in to see if it's malicious. That's kind of what's going on out there for most security tools. Would you agree or disagree with that, Randy?
No, I would totally agree.
Right. So when AI can take away that anomalous behavior, your tools are now obsolete. And I think in the next 3 to 5 years, these companies are going to be found out that the stuff that they put in place is really obsolete. And unfortunately, some of them are going to have the resources and ability to pivot and move towards this, and some are going to go out of business, right? Just like we're talking about the government saving Intel right now. Why? Because they didn't pivot quick enough. And now they're too far behind the 8 ball, and they need help. And and yes, they're too big to fail. We can't let some other foreign company come in and buy that up.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, that's the world we're living in. So just be aware of it, right? Just be aware that AI is changing how cybersecurity tools are going to work in the future. So don't get complacent. Don't think that because we invested in this stuff that the threat isn't evolving or changing, because it is. Here it is. It's, these tools are being weaponized, and they're being used in a way to circumvent the current tools. That's what I'm seeing cyber criminals use AI for. They're not using it to do it faster. They're doing it to do it smarter, so they can get around the defenses that companies have invented and put in place over the years. Right?
Yeah. So, well, and also, in this particular article, we're talking and looking at a lot at like Claude. So Claude found this in their network, but I've read in the last couple of weeks, I'm almost positive that Grok made their AI open source, and it might just be the previous version. They've made that open source, and we know there's other versions of the AI that you can download locally, and they never have to phone home. So basically, we're not going to be able to stop the bad guys from using the AI. Claude will. They've shut down the accounts of these people, and I'm sure they trained, their authenticator or whatever they use to determine if you're doing it good or bad, if you're doing good or bad stuff. They've trained it on this or whatever. But eventually, we're just going to drive the bad guys into using their own AIs on their own networks.
I'm going to touch on that when I talk about my article, but you're 100% right? Look, the name of the game is, and it's no different in real software development, right? That you're trying to figure out if you can do something, right? So what they do is they use the free tier servers and the free tier plans that are available to them through Azure, AWS, Anthropic, ChatGPT. All these things can be used for free at some level. And cyber criminals don't want to pay for things that they don't know aren't working for them. So they're going to use these free tools. And then when they realize it works, they're going to pivot to like tools that they control, right? That are run out of maybe not the surface web, but other areas, either their own private, clouds or dark web, who knows, right? But you're right. I mean, again, this is only testing. This is like, what can we do? Can we get away with this? Look, if they can set up their infrastructure and fly under the radar on AWS or Azure or in one of these SaaS applications, they'll do it until they get caught. But they're not going to stop once they get caught. They're going to pivot to something that they have more control over. And the only people that are going to stop that are the feds. Once that's established.
Okay, so interesting that you brought that up, because I was just thinking 35 seconds ago or a minute ago, we're talking vibe coding here. And you and I both know that vibe coding has a lot of potential security vulnerabilities because you're not writing it to be secure. So I was just wondering, I wonder if the feds are going to be analyzing the malware for vulnerabilities so they can hack back to the bad guys. So I know that's kind of off in the weeds. We don't.
It is for sure.
Anyway.
All right, buddy. Good one. I'm going to switch over to this one. My Cozy Bear boys are back. These guys pop up like every couple of years. It's crazy. So if you don't know who Cozy Bear is, Amazon announced that they recently disrupted an active cyber campaign by APT-29. And APT-29 are Russian state-backed hackers who historically are the same crew behind the famous SolarWinds fiasco, which caused our government to essentially get hacked, and all kinds of nastiness going back years and years. So they're back. And this time they went with something a little sneaky. And I'm going to get a little technical here, but try to explain this to you in layman's terms, so stick with me. It's a watering hole attack. And what that is they hack into or create perfectly legitimate websites and then inject obfuscated JavaScript code. So when someone visits about 1 in 10 times, the victim would get silently redirected to a site that looks like a Cloudflare verification page. Ones you mentioned, like click here, verify you're human. Except 1 out of every 10 of those was fake, right? So again, in years past, they would have sent every single visitor to that page. Now they're smart. They're sending 1 out of every 10. Why? Or they're redirecting 1 out of every 10. Why? Because they know what the system is looking for, and they know if they do it 1 out of every 10 times, they're not going to get flagged. So, yes, they can still pick off victims. They're not going to pick off, they're going to pick off 10 times less, obviously, if you do the math. But that's the name of the game, right? So once they get redirected silently, that page tricked people into doing things like entering MFA codes, the kind Microsoft uses when you log in from, say, another device, your TV, an app, right? Problem is once you enter that code, you've just authorized a hacker to get into your Microsoft 365 account.
Right.
So you basically handed them the keys and even said, have a nice day with all my files and all my information. Depending on your company, if a lot of companies have migrated to the cloud, right, to M365. A lot of companies that I work with, you work with, Randy, I would imagine that this is the case around the world, have moved away from, traditional file servers sitting in their office or their own data centers, whatever. And they've moved it all to Microsoft and they moved it all to SharePoint, right? So, 5 years ago, business email compromise used to not be a big deal, right? They got into your email, okay? That could be a really bad thing, or it could be like a nothing burger, depending on who it is in the company or whatever, right? I also would suppose that most companies, when they moved, probably didn't adopt a good policy around limiting access, right? Limiting access to files, folders, and things like that, right? We always joked about on this show, the business drive or the N drive or the share drive, right? That a lot of businesses have, where they just kind of dumped everything, right? That was like where everybody kind of put everything and everybody had access to it. And over the years, we said that's a really bad idea. I mean, Sally from accounting, clicks on a file and shuts down your whole operations is not something you want, right? Person in marketing, your low-level marketing intern shouldn't be able to shut down your whole company because they clicked on something, right? But that was a reality of what we see out there. And I don't think it's changed since we moved to SharePoint, right? I don't think companies have actually taken the time to say, okay, yeah, those folders over there, only these team members get access to it. I still believe that most people would move it there, give everybody access to everything, just like most businesses always do, right? And if you're like, no way, like businesses don't do that. I run risk assessments. And I'm confident enough to say I've run enough risk assessments to say this. Like, it's not good. Like some companies do it right, but you consider yourself a lottery winner if you work at one of those places or you've seen one, because it's really hard to find them, right? So at the end of the day, people have shifted to SharePoint. People have moved everything in there. People have given these users access to everything in there. So if I can log into your M365 account, more than likely, I have access to your whole entire SharePoint, which is probably all your company files in most cases. And that's the real risk that I think people don't understand about this. It's not about like, hey, somebody got into Joe's email last week. Somebody got into our SharePoint. And that's how you have to look at it.
Yeah.
Because unless you have the ability to understand what that person was doing once they got in, which you probably don't have, by the way. It's not like, doesn't come with Microsoft services. It's stuff you have to bolt on separately to figure that out. So, I would venture to say most companies don't have that in place. So you're going to have no idea if somebody got into one of your employees' emails, went into your SharePoint and stole data, manipulated it, or, offloaded it in any way. And they can encrypt it if they want to, but they're not really encrypting shit anymore. They're just getting in, they're taking it, and they're calling you up saying, we got it. And if you don't want us to release it, you're going to pay us.
Right.
So that's what's going on, man. It's crazy that this group is out here doing this. I mean, at the end of the day, this group is extremely successful at what they do. They're going to go crazy with this. Oh, and by the way, they're the Russian army.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to throw in a couple of tips for people.
Yeah.
So first off, if you're using a password keeper in this case, and you go to a site that's asking you to verify on Cloudflare, which their whole goal here, obviously the title says this, the whole goal was you go to a site, you mentioned it, the watering hole, which imagine like a lion waiting by a watering hole. They love hunting by watering holes because everybody's got to go to the watering hole. So they're waiting by a website you like. They've infected it somehow. But anyway, you go to that website, and rather than being able to use it, it pops up this thing from Cloudflare wanting you to verify yourself. That ought to raise a red flag. And it's probably not gonna on your average bloke, because we get these little pop-ups all the dang time.
No, because like if you go down here, they're saying like, hey, they use like these domains, right? Like, people don't pay attention to what domain comes up and that little box pops up.
But the point where they're going to try to go next from here, so you enter in your email address, it's going to take you to they're going to try to get your fake. Well, they want your 365 login stuff. So It's going to take you to somewhere where you're trying to log into 365. If you're using a password keeper, I guess this is where my point is, and it took a minute to get here, but if you're using a password keeper, it's not going to want to fill that in because you're going to be at another fake site that doesn't need 365 or that doesn't line up with a known 365 site. And I guess also another tip, even as I say that, because I'm thinking, dang, that's still pretty complicated. You know what I mean? For your average bloke out there who gets these dang pop-ups all the time. They happen all the time. You and I are kind of aware of it or whatever. But then I guess thinking through this, I would also second what you said about your 365 security. Yeah. You need to have 365 set up. And this is not something your average bloke can do. It needs to be set up where it's logging all of this kind of stuff. You need to blow a gasket of some sort when someone logs into some weird site or a different place. And you probably ought to have it being monitored by AI-enhanced third-party tools that are ingesting all of that data and giving you feedback and calling you or creating an alert every time something wonky happens, so you know that it's going on. Because you really ought to get an alert of some sort if somebody logs into 365 from some weird place somewhere. You know what I mean? Or starts creating roles or something like that. This is kind of all, it's pretty overwhelming, Brian, because it's not, there's not just a simple answer like, don't click on it.
No, but it definitely proves the point that these guys are constantly thinking about this stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, they put more thought and brain power into how they're going to get around all this stuff and attack companies still, in my opinion, than companies put into how they're going to defend against us or how they're going to stop it, right? Mm-hmm. And just think about this, right? They were like, look at what I have up on the screen, right? They used a cookie-based system to prevent the same user from being redirected multiple times. Yeah, they're trying to evade detection there and Cloudflare, and they're doing this all over the place. They're making these systems smarter so they don't get tripped up with these different tripwires that have been set up that cybersecurity companies are out there touting as like, hey, we got the ultimate tool that's going to stop hackers. Maybe today you do, but I don't know. Long term, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and that thing that you have up on the screen about the cookie-based system, that's been around for a long time.
Oh, this is not sophisticated, but it's smart, right? It's okay, we're not going to send because here's how this plays out for the users, right? Your employee or you get this fake email, right? You click on it once, something happens, nothing happens, I don't know. You click on it again, you think it's from Sally, who you've been doing business with, right? You get this fake email from her that was sent to her because her account was compromised. You didn't realize it. Now you're clicking on it 7 times. And that's what these tools are expecting. They're expecting somebody like you to come in and click on it 7 times and go to this site 7 times and then trigger something. Like, hey, this got triggered a bunch of times in a short period of time. We need to block it, look into it, whatever. That's how these tools work. And they're circumventing all that with these simple systems that they can go, hey, you click on that link, we're going to drop a cookie on your system first. Then we're going to show you the page. Oh, and by the way, if you click on that again, you're not going to see this page. We're going to go to where you thought you were going to go when you clicked on it. So it doesn't trigger anything. It's simple but smart at the same time, right? But simple stuff can evade today's cyber defenses. It's a game, right? Finally, I just want to wrap up here, Randy, and point out that at the bottom of this, and I just wanted to dive into this a little bit. Amazon, they all like coming out and saying this. Amazon emphasized that this AP29 campaign did not compromise its infrastructure or impact its services. Right. But again, this goes back to what I was saying in your segment, Randy, where I was like, they live off the land, right? They are using free tier products that these companies offer to execute this stuff. That's why Amazon got involved because their EC2 servers, their free tier EC2 servers were the things being abused by these guys to pull this off. And then they work with Cloudflare and Microsoft to connect the dots and figure out what the hell is going on. Like, where did this IP address go? They map it. They go to Cloudflare. Cloudflare says, yeah, they went here to Microsoft, and then this is what they did when they got in. That's Microsoft telemetry that they can give. And the three of them work together to figure out these campaigns. Thank God they do this, right? Because it would make our job a lot harder on this end.
Yeah.
Right. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I'm starting to go against free tiers, free stuff, free anything. Like, you want to run anything on the internet that's plugged in the internet, you need to identify yourself, and we need to be able to know who you are. Right. Yeah. I mean, I do license verification for some really dumb shit these days. Right. And, I'm flashing my license up on my webcam because it wants to verify me. And like, why can't we do it for server products that can run malware and host it? That's where I'm at. So, any last thoughts there, Randy?
I don't think so. Just
because I'm ready to land the plane if you are.
Yeah, I'm about ready to land the plane too. This one's really got me thinking, though, man. This was a good article that you brought to talk about today. And I think one thing we didn't really go into, which I think the article did, is you can also set up your 365 where a lot of this can be prevented. Like, you're logging in from an unknown location. You got risky behavior going on. Like,
agreed. But I would just say be careful, because we like to use third-party tools for that for certain reasons, not just because it's, and when you do it through Microsoft right now, I'm probably thinking this will change down the road, but right now it's very strict, and it can cause, like, it's caused me too much grief in terms of, like, I use a couple different devices and things like that. So I might be logging in from different places, and that right there, I'm just going to leave it at that, has caused me grief to where I can't just use the internal Microsoft stuff.
Right.
I'm sure you know what I'm saying. I don't want to say too much because,
You'll start sounding like an REM song.
Well, I'm already getting attacked like crazy. Like, literally. Like, in the last 3 weeks, I've gotten so many attempts. Like, it's not even funny. Like, yesterday I had a brute force attempt. I've had 4 brute force attempts in the last probably 2 weeks. That's that's a very high frequency. And somebody tried to open a credit card in my name like 4 days ago. So, fun stuff, right?
Right.
I mean, it all got blocked, but you would expect that from a guy like me, right? I'm concerned about those people out there who don't have the stuff that I have in place, and the team of people watching my shit like other people don't have. I'm lucky, right? Yep. And I know I'm out here doing this shit, and I'm on YouTube, right? So I know I'm a target, right? So I know they're going to come for me, right? And I don't care. So, once you get in, you're not going to find much anyway. Yep. So don't underestimate, right, how quickly AI is changing the game. Don't overlook boring stuff like authentication flows and account security. As I mentioned, that's where these bad guys are sneaking in today. And if you think this is just a government problem, your head's in the clouds, and you're going to be feeling that effects of that blast radius that we say you need to kind of reduce. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's Security Squawk. If you found this show useful, do us a favor, subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to support what we're doing, head over to buymeacoffee.com/Security Squawk and help us keep bringing you the stories that matter. I'm Bryan Horning with Randy Bryan. Stay safe, stay skeptical, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one, y'all.